What's up, everybody? We're back.
Yeah! Hey, welcome back to the Metalhead's Journey. Hey, it feels like it's been about 1,000,000 years since we've made it back to the front of our 4 lists that we're doing here.
5.
But we've done it. We are back. Oh yeah, 5 lists because with the time machine now that we've done two. We've done 2 time machine albums before we got back around to this. Make it make sense.
Yeah.
I can't. We're back to the top 20 rock and roll albums of all time list. Guys, I feel like we've been kind of in this desert. I mean, the last record was good. The Korn record was good.
Mm-hmm.
But we've kind of been in this desert, thirsty for some really good music for a little bit here. And finally...
Specifically from the rock list, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and not from the prog list, Dream Theater. But no, the rock list is funny, right? Because we started. I'm sorry that we're just kind of veering off right off the top here, but we started this rock list and it was hot. Rush, hot. Moving Pictures, Boston, Queen, Night at the Opera, and man, I mean, it was like, dude, this thing's throwing 100 miles an hour. We can't miss. And then the Rolling Stones, Let It Bleed, and then the Doors, and
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, Are You Experienced?
No, it was Electric Ladyland.
Oh, Electric Ladyland, excuse me. Are You Experienced is coming up. Yeah, and those albums were like, they were rough. Okay, but hey, we're back. We're back. This is the number 14 rock album of all time. This is Led Zeppelin with Led Zeppelin II. All right, we're going to get into it here. Led Zeppelin, formed in 1968, is an English rock band. The band is comprised of Robert Plant on vocals. Jason, take notes on this. Robert Plant on vocals, Jimmy Page on guitar, John Paul Jones on bass, and John Bonham on drums. They're one of the best-selling music artists of all time with record sales upwards of 300 million worldwide.
Is that a lot?
That's pretty good. They have had 6 certified number 1 albums on Billboard and 5 albums certified diamond in the U.S. That's 25 million copies sold for Diamond. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995. The band disbanded after the death of John Bonham in 1980. So they did all of this and sold all these records from albums they made in a 12-year period, basically. It's wacky.
300 million is barely 300 million more than we sold.
Yeah, I think if we'd have had like a record at one of our shows, we could have sold like 40 copies.
Yeah.
So we're just like 2.996
million.
Yeah,
like that.
Not to derail you, Josh, but like it's crazy when you think about like the prestige and everything behind this band and the legacy that they have, and they were only a band, for about 12 years.
They haven't been at anything since 1980.
And they've not really like gotten back together and done anything. Like Plant and Page did some stuff for a little bit, but like not like nothing Led Zeppelin really.
Well, they did have some reunion tours with John Bonham's son as the
did they officially do that? I thought that was always like the desire, but I don't know if they ever did it.
I'm pretty sure they played a few shows with him.
Or maybe a few shows, but I don't know if they ever did like a full-on tour.
No. I meant like a reunion show, not a tour. Just like a few shows.
Maybe, yeah. So Led Zeppelin II, released in 1969, is the band's second studio album. This was the band's first number 1 album. It is generally regarded as being the band's heaviest album. The album exhibited the band's evolving musical style of blues and guitar riff-based rock. The album sold over 12 million copies in the U.S. as of 1999. So probably double that by now. This album produced 1 single, "Whole Lot of Love." No, I can't be right. Oh, no, Whole Lot. Well, it's "Whole Lot of Love, Living Loving Made," but it should be "Heartbreaker, Living Loving Made," because it's not a whole lot of love. It should be "Heartbreaker." So "Heartbreaker, Living Loving Made." Jason,
but what I love for "A Whole Lot of Love" did get radio turned because it was the only song on this album that they edited for the radio.
Well, I mean, look, they've played all these songs on the radio. I've heard the bulk of this album on Rock 101 and 93.7.
No, before you get to what is considered like classic rock radio, the only one from this album that actually got as a single or radio play was "A Whole Lot of Love."
And it's the only song, at the time.
Yeah, at the time.
That's like a butchered version, man. That's like I feel like I'm Don Corleone and the Godfather, where I'm like, look what they did to my boy. Right? Like
true.
When they play this song and they like cut all the good stuff out of it.
Yeah, they cut over 2.5 minutes out of that song to make a radio-friendly version. It's the only song apparently that they did.
All right. Well, hey,
radio.
let's try to keep this to a radio-friendly version of this video. Jason,
Yeah.
what did you think about the record?
It was really good. For whatever reasons, over time, like I never got around to listening to Zeppelin. I was familiar with Zeppelin, listened to a lot of Zeppelin through family, relatives, because they're all into this, this time frame. When I was a kid, go to the local bar with my mom. This was always on the jukebox. So, I mean, I'm familiar with Zeppelin, but I had never owned any of their albums, never bought any of their CDs. I was familiar with their work and some of their hits, but never had dived into them. So this was a fun experience. I like this era of rock. So I overall, it was kind of cool to go in a time machine, if you will, and experience this for myself as far as this album in its entirety for the first time.
I know you're a big vocals guy, and I know that holds you back sometimes from enjoying certain albums. What do you think about Robert Plant? That's the singer, by the way.
To give away the punchline sooner. I mean, he is my co-MVP.
No, okay. So you liked it.
Oh yeah, I love his voice.
That's good. That was going to be an early, like, we may have to kick you off the show. Gentlemen, what did you think?
Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush too much on this one. In my opinion, Led Zeppelin is without a doubt one of the most legendary bands of all time. I put them up there with bands like the Beatles or Black Sabbath or whatever, as far as whose legacy is greater, in my opinion, than the sum of their discography. And this album, of course, is part of that legacy. And it's an absolute banger. Every instrument and the vocals are near perfect as far as the delivery. And, obviously there's little imperfections and things like that, given the probably what kind of recording they were dealing with back then, but it's whatever. And I know we're not doing best riff anymore, but there are several songs on this album that are contenders for like greatest of all time.
What would you say is the best riff on the album? Do you have one off the top of your head?
It's hard to say, but I mean, Heartbreaker, obviously. Yep. Live and Love and Made, the bass part in Ramble On, that's it does it for me every time. So I mean, it's funny because from my memory being much, much younger, growing up, wanting to play instruments as a teen and stuff like that, I think every aspiring musician at some point goes through a phase where they're like, man, music was so much better back then. And this is one of those bands that you always point to because in a lot of ways it was. The limitations of technology and other things really brought out the true creativity in a lot of people. And Led Zeppelin was one of them. It was kind of a right place, right time, perfect storm kind of mixture with this album and this sound and just everything about rock and roll in general at the time. So, I have criticisms. I'm given the number of tracks, I'm going to have to cut one. But overall, my thoughts are extremely positive. And like I said, for me at least, the album and the discography is greater than the sum of its parts. I'm still going to try to be critical later on when I give a review score, but I just want to get all that out the way. I love this band. I love this album.
Yeah. I'll hop in. I've been jamming this record for the better part of 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. I had a buddy back in high school or even middle school that his name was Travis that turned me on to a lot of rock and stuff like that. Black Sabbath. So obviously Ozzy, but Led Zeppelin was one of those as well, right? And, getting a chance to kind of go through the discography and listen to a lot of Led Zeppelin. Like, I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan. I love Led Zeppelin. And so I was super excited when we put this list together to see that this album was on there and that it's not nothing against Led Zeppelin 4 necessarily, because a lot of people think that's like their black album in some cases because it has Stairway on it. So a lot of people conceive that to be like, this is the best Zeppelin album, but this is like their Ride to Lightning. Like, this is their actual best record. And I was super excited it was this record. Ride to Lightning is better than Master of Puppets, Dave. Calm down. This album, I mean, it's top to bottom, dude. This album is full of bangers. Like, the fact that we're going to have to cut one later just kind of hurts a little bit, actually, because I wouldn't cut anything off this record. But, dude, I don't have much to say from an educated standpoint on this, other than, dude, I love listening to this record.
Yeah.
I listen to this record as part of my just normal. I don't want to say day to day life because I don't listen to it every day, but I mean, I probably listen to the bulk of this record 6 times a year, something like that. Like this is in constant rotation for me. This is one of my favorite records of all time. So I was excited to see when this one came up for sure. Dave, what'd you think?
Yeah. Again, I mean, I'm gonna be echoing a lot of what y'all said, so I'll try to.
Well, you can go right into your MVP as well.
Well, hold on, I will after that. So
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it a little bit personal then, to just not regurgitate the same stuff y'all said. This is my dad's favorite band, so I grew up listening to Led Zeppelin. You know, a lot of classic rock. You know, this band and like Three Dog Night are my dad's two favorites. So I do come in with a little bit of bias because I'm 39 years old, so I've been listening to this since I can remember. But this album is from top to bottom is iconic for me. Rarely do we listen to records that truly, like, as soon as you hear it, it's just like all the pieces come together and it truly sounds like something special. Jonah
Dave,
mentioned,
that's a good point. I'm sorry, I hate to cut you off, but there's so many times that, like, I listen to an album. I'll give you a great example, Master of Puppets. I listened to Master of Puppets the first time and I was like, dude, what is this crap? And I put it back in my CD case for a year. And I didn't come back to it. And then after a year, I was like, God, I bought this piece of crap. I guess I should listen to it. And then, obviously I was like, oh my God, what have I been doing with my life? But there's so many times, and I mean, just doing the show, maybe you guys, can chime in on that, where it's like you listen to an album for the first time, you're like, ugh, why is this album here? And then it takes time to kind of get into it. Another one of those for me was Toxicity.
yeah, I have the same problem with Toxicity. Yep.
Yeah, but this was the first time I heard it. I was like, I loved it the first time I heard it. There was there were some songs like Lemon Song took a little while to get into, but for the most part, like, I love this album first time. Sorry, Dave.
No, you're fine. I also just wanted to bring up a little wholesome memory that I have, and I don't know why I have this in my head, but there's like during Whole Lot of Love, whenever like it goes across like both the left and the right, when it's like, I have this memory of riding in the front seat of my dad's car, hearing this song for maybe the first or second time ever, and when that goes, like, my dad just goes like this throughout the whole car, like while he's driving, and probably dangerous, in hindsight.
Nah,
but
it was the 90s.
yeah. But like, I don't know why that just sticks out for me. Like, I just hearing that my dad's just jamming out, and then like when the drums kick in after the like all the back and forth from like just the little ding dong ding, like when Bonham's like snare roll comes in, like my dad just smashing on the fucking steering wheel. Sorry, I couldn't make it without cussing.
We lost it.
Yeah.
Damn it.
So like it just sticks into my head. Man, this is just a great record from top to bottom, and I love every second of it. I'll go into MVP here. I mean, look, you got these four guys who are each one of them inspired their like swaths of people to play their respective instrument. You know what I mean? Robert Plant inspired people to be singers. Jimmy Page, countless guitarists. John Paul Jones, bass players and keyboardists, as he did both. And then obviously John Bonham influenced countless drummers. I mean, picking an MVP is kind of like it don't even know. But it's really hard not to pick Jimmy Page because this is just such a guitar forward album. And if we were doing, best riff, the opening of Whole Lot of Love, and I get it, it's kind of like it's a little cliche or whatever, or low hanging fruit, but that opening, just like like, it's so iconic. And I get chills when that plays, and then Plant's vocals come in right after that. It's just like that moment in that song, that the first 20 seconds of this album is like you instantly know you're about to have a great time. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, though I would have to pick Jimmy Page, but again, only because of this process.
Is it a Jimmy Page sweep?
No.
Oh, okay. I also have Jimmy Page. I guess the two bass players are going to go John Paul Jones. Yeah, dude, Jimmy Page, main songwriter for the band, obviously. And I think this album is just riff writing 101, man. Like, there's so many great riffs on here. I think, even though we don't have the best riff category, you guys have shared yours. Mine would be Bring It On Home. I love that riff
After
at the beginning of the song. That ba-da-da-da-da,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Love that riff. So I mean, there's so many memorable moments on this record from a guitar standpoint, and the solos are great too. A lot of really good, I know this sounds dumb to say highlighted solos because solos are always highlighted, but like these are like built up to it in a whole lot of love and Heartbreaker, where it's like they really are this like standalone almost piece of music within the song, and then they go back into their songs, So yeah, Jimmy Page easy for me. What'd you guys have?
I'll go. I
go
have
ahead.
co-MVPs, and it's not it's not the bass player. It's just going to be Robert Plant and Jimmy Page both.
Okay.
I love Zeppelin's sound, and if you're just going to go, what is the sound? It's going to be his vocals and the guitar riffs. I'll keep it simple.
What you
Okay.
got, Jonah?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to choose. I agree completely with whatever Dave was saying. Basically the entire band is a very close runner-up, but it's got to be Page. His guitar work here, it practically set the foundation for kind of what rock and hard rock or heavy rock became over the next for the rest of his life. And anyway, it was really hard not to pick John Paul Jones though, because I touched on it earlier, but like songs like Ramble On and which song was it that I made a note? Heartbreaker, the fuzz on the bass, it just like growls and rumbles. Ugh, God, it's so good.
Dude. Well, and going back to what Dave was saying with Whole Lot of Love, I mean, it's not even just when Robert Plant comes in and starts singing. It's when John Paul Jones comes in and like the second part of the riff.
Exactly.
When it's like and I was on a plane listening to this, so I get to listen to it with some headphones, which I rarely get to listen to this music with headphones. And that added an extra little bit of oomph for John Paul Jones as well.
Yeah, so it was difficult to choose. They all deserve. I mean, they're already legendary. I've stroked them enough with my words, but yeah, it's Page. It's Page.
All right. Hey, we added a couple of new scored categories as well, so we'll get into those real quick. I want to do album art first, and I have a little bit of history of this, actually, oddly enough. So the album art for this album was actually nominated for a Grammy. It was nominated for Best Recording Package in 1970. You're saying nominated, so they lost. Yes, they did lose. They lost to an artist, Gary McFarland, for America the Beautiful, whose album art just had a big bald eagle on the front of it.
Wow.
Yeah. So the guy who actually designed the cover art, his name was David Juniper.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it is David Juniper.
I just read on it.
Okay, it says his design was based on a photograph of the Jagdstaffel 11 division of the German Air Force during World War I, the flying circus led by the Red Baron. Juniper replaced 4 of the flyers' heads with photos of the band members, added facial hair and sunglasses to some of the flyers' faces, or replaced some with the faces of other people. The blonde-haired woman is French actress Delphine Seyrig, and her role as Marie Madeleine in the film Mr. Freedom, a leftist anti-war satire by William Klein. The cover also pictured the outline of a Zeppelin on a brown background, similar to the cover of the band's first album, which gave the album its nickname, the Brown Bomber. Yeah. What did you guys give the album art here?
I'll come in because I feel like mine is pretty low. So I knew that there was likely a history behind the album art. So I purposefully didn't look that up before rating it because I didn't want that to taint my score. I just looked at it and rated it. And I gave it a 6. And that's just because if I don't do the research, it's just like a whatever album art to me. There's nothing wrong with it. Again, 6 for us, like without going through the whole spiel. Like 6 for us is not a bad score. It's above average. Average for us is a 5. But I'm trying to be objective. I think the album art's iconic, but it's only iconic because I know what the
Because
music.
the album is iconic.
Because the album is
Yeah.
iconic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Because Dave, that's not a low score because I gave it a 3.
Hey, I gave it a 5.
There you go. I think
also gave it a 5.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't
shoot.
think so. There you go, Dave. You're the highest one.
Oh,
Way to go, Dave. You
I
suck
think the
ass.
album art it's whatever. Reading
Absolutely
through this and understanding this as being the first ever use of Photoshop. There you go. Maybe I would give this like a 3.5 then, just for the ingenuity of it. But overall, I think the album cover it's not even mid.
I think probably the work that whoever put this together did to make it look believably good
David
was
Jones.
probably more intensive than we're giving it credit for in today's technology. But just looking at it, meh.
I think what would have really actually made this album cover, and look, at the end of the day, who cares about our opinions? But like, for me, what would have made this album art significantly better, and I'm curious y'all's opinion because I thought about this. What if the only people on the cover were the members of the band?
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, it would need to be like further up into the photo. I think there's a lot of stuff that would need to change.
But I think that would be where a good start for me on improving this. Like, the other random people in here just don't. Like,
I'm curious. Like, if
it's
a random.
Out. Like, I wonder if in 1969 when this came out, are you looking at this and you're like, holy shit, dude,
that's so and so.
That's Donald Trump, and oh shit, dude, that's
right.
That's fucking Chris Hemsworth, or whoever.
Yeah.
Plus, they're a British. They're British. They're a British band, and the 2 world wars impacted them much more heavily than they did us. Any kind of world war imagery is going to hit home more for them.
Yeah,
than us.
I mean, it's all context matters for sure.
Yeah, knowing the context, knowing the history, I do think it's cooler and more interesting than before I knew that.
But it's still pretty plain.
Going based off what my eyeballs are looking at, I think it's fine. Yeah. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's great either.
So you're saying the Grammys, they picked America the Beautiful because they were anti-English and German?
Yep, that's what
probably.
I'm saying.
Not necessarily.
I think that's exactly what Jonah was saying.
Clip that out, Dave.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
All right. Let's get into album title here. I'll go first. I don't particularly care for Led Zeppelin II as an album title. Now, look, had they done their 8 albums and they just went Led Zeppelin 1 through 8, I might have been okay. I might have been more okay with that because at least it was a theme. That's just like they did 4 of them, and then they go Houses of the Holy and Through the Outdoor. And
I mean, if we're being really technical, Led Zeppelin 4 is only 4 by like fan interpretation. It technically it's self-titled. It doesn't have a title.
Well, and that one also goes by Zoso sometimes as well. So. Look, if this album was called Brown Bomber, I would give it a higher score, but I'm going with a 5 for Led Zeppelin 2.
Yeah, it gets a 5 for me also. It is the most functional name of any album. It is Led Zeppelin album number 2.
Yeah, I went with a 3
Yikes.
for unoriginality.
I think that's fair.
I went 5.5.
Okay.
It's whatever.
I mean, look, you could just go with a song off the album. What is and what should never be.
Well, that sounds like an album that.
Or thank you.
I don't think I would like that.
or Lemons.
Honestly, they could have called it Whole Lot of Love.
They could have called it Whole Lot of Love. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, let's get into top tracks. Jonah, what are your top tracks for the record?
Okay, so. There were a lot of really good songs on this album, but there were 3 clear winners for me as far as top 3. I had a little bit of trouble deciding on numbers 2 and 3, but number 1 was a shoe-in for me. So for number 3, I got Whole Lot of Love. It's a classic. It goes hard. Number 2, I got Ramble On, specifically because the bass is so good on that. It basically carries the song. And then for me, number 1 has got to be Heartbreaker for the same reason. The bass on that song goes so hard. The fuzz that he's got, the fuzz effect, the growl that it's got behind it. What a riff. So good. Number 1 for me.
What a China.
You
Jason,
want me to
go
go
ahead.
next? All right, so I got number 3 is What Is and What Should Never Be. Number 2 and 1 are pretty much like 1A, 1B. There's just a narrow margin here. But I had Thank You at number 2. And number 1, for the same reason that Jonah has at number 2, Ramble On.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Ramble On, getting some love here.
I'll go next because I don't have any of the ones that Jason picked. So I have my number 3 is the Lemon Song. Disappointed that nobody has that in their top 3. I think that song is excellent. My number 2 is Whole Lot of Love. Just an iconic song, iconic opener. And my number 1, look, if I couldn't cheat with this in our cut down, I'm gonna cheat with it here. It's Heartbreaker, Livin' Lovin' Made. I personally consider those 2 songs to be one song, and so I'm not gonna separate them in this instance. I think combined they are just excellent. I love it that they do seem to naturally go into each other. I'm always disappointed if on the radio, which I hardly listen to anymore, but if I ever catch Heartbreaker on the radio and they don't play Livin' Lovin' Made right after, I basically like rage quit like in radio anymore. But just excellent.
Nice. Yeah, for me, I've got I have an honorable mention. I have Whole Lot of Love as my honorable mention. Number 3 for me, What Is and What Should Never Be. Love the vocal melody in that. Number 2, this is, I don't know, this number 2 and number 1 go back and forth for me from time to time. But I have Ramble On at number 2. Love this song. I was shocked. Like, I thought this was just like a deep cut that I was the only person that knew about this song. I didn't think you guys were actually going to come on here and sing the praises. So good job by most of you guys. Dave, not you. Number 1 for me, though, I do know this is the deep cut. It's the last track on the record, but I love the riff. I love the feeling of this. I love the whole bluesy start, and then you go into that heavy ass riff, right? Bring it on home. What a cool song. Since we're talking about tracks and track listing, what would you guys score the track listing here? And this is just our overall thought of, did they get the order right?
I'm just gonna throw out 10 here. I'm just gonna go. I don't think there's anything wrong with this track listing whatsoever. I think it's a really good balance between got a heavy rocker. Usually they kind of have a little something a little bit more mid-tempo with a little lighter tone. And then, they kind of alternate between that most of the time. I think it's very, for me, I don't know if it's coincidental, but I love that the last song is Bring It On Home. Like, they're bringing this album on home.
Yep.
And they're ending like that. So, I don't think there's anything I would do to the track listing.
I think I would go with an 8.8, and I would move the 3rd and 4th songs around somewhere else on the record. I think Lemon Song and Thank You, while they're great songs, I wouldn't cut them. Those are the 2 songs I was choosing between on what to cut for the record. And so them being back to back on the record, and again, not being bad songs, but just my level of enjoyment for those versus everything else, it's different. I would probably move those around. But all in all, I'd give it an 8.8. Jason, what you got?
I'm not a big guy on track listings, so I gave it a 7 out of 10. I don't really know what you'd move around too much, but there are a couple of songs that, when we get down to what to cut, is where my issue is on this album, which leads into the track listings, and I'll explain it when we get to the songs we cut.
All right. John, what you got?
I'd give it an 8. I think you're right about moving Thank You for sure. I think maybe putting it after Livin' Lovin' Made would
Yeah.
work, because Ramble On kind of starts a little slower anyway. You kind of ramp back up with Moby Dick and Bring It On Home. Just maybe that slight change, but eight's good.
Yeah, and what do you guys think of? I mean, before we get into like what we cut down, just the album production and the quality of the sound for the album. What would you guys score that?
I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, this is a remaster, so it's hard to go back and hear the original. But I think for 1969, and I don't know what year this was remastered, but I mean, look, I gave the production a 7.5. I mean, it could be better than that, but you can clearly hear every instrument. Nothing is overpowering. Like I think it sounds pretty damn good. I'm gonna change my score. I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
I was gonna say I also have it as 7.5. Yeah, I think there's nothing on it I would change. I'm totally fine with it. It's not the most amazing production ever, but it's about as good as you can get for.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 out of 10. But I gave it what I feel was a higher score as far as the 8 out of 10, even though it's flawed as far as the recording value for it. But I think that's on purpose, because this is like a kind of a gritty kind of album. Like there's heaviness to it. There's a lot to it, but I feel like that's part of the sound that makes this appealing. It's like this is on, like you take the way it's recorded and then you play it on a record player, an actual record. I mean, it's even better. So
yeah.
What you got, John?
Yeah, I gave it an 8. I think it's really good. There are better, quote unquote, better sounding records, but this one definitely stands out above a lot of the ones from that, especially that year in particular. A lot of albums came out that year. But yeah, I think you nailed it, Jason. Because of the blues influence, I think it's supposed to be a little gritty, a little dirty, even. Because blues traditionally before this era, I guess, was very like, not like professionally recorded or anything.
During that time, that Rolling Stones record, "Let It Bleed," I forget what year that came out, somewhere around here.
Around the same time, if not the same year.
This production dumps all over, but I mean, also the instrumentation dumps all over it, because I mean, it's just actual like guitar rock bass versus. I'm not talking shit about Rolling Stones necessarily. I'm just saying that
I mean,
it's a different style.
It's not gonna hurt my
yeah,
feelings.
but it's a different style. Jimmy Page is out here ripping his ass off, and Keith Richards is playing, acoustic guitar.
All right.
So, all right. Hey, so second to last category here. This is where we make our cuts on the record, and we only do this because metal many years ago, and in the metal bylaws, they identified that 8 songs is really the sweet spot for any real like super high quality metal album. And so any album that's over 8 songs, we like to cut it down to 8 just to create our own super high quality metal album. This album has 9 songs on it, so we have to cut 1. I'll go first. Like I talked about earlier, for me, it was struggling between Lemon Song and Thank You. I think these are both great songs. Lemon Song definitely has a little nastier vibe to it, and I like that. So I'm going to go with Thank You as my cut.
All right, I'll jump in here because it's a different cut. Look, there's one song on here that doesn't have Robert Plant's vocals. And
you're so stupid.
And look,
you're the dumbest person alive.
I like Moby Dick. I like the song. I wouldn't actually skip it or like if it wasn't for this experiment.
It's a drum solo.
Which is why it's getting cut.
You're a drummer.
That's fine. But it is the odd thing out. And I don't struggle with Lemon Song or Thank You. I love those songs.
I don't struggle with them either.
To me, it was I'm going to air quote easy because, again, it's just the odd song out. So I cut Moby.
What bizarro world are we living in where Dave and Josh are arguing opposite sides of the instrumental track?
Yeah, so let me jump in and I'll help Dave clarify what he really wants to say. Is that Moby Dick sucks dick?
It doesn't, but it doesn't at all.
Dude, it is 1 minute of a song and then 3 minutes of bongos. Now look,
it is a 3-minute drum solo.
If you like bongos, this is your fucking jam.
It's not
I
just
don't.
bongos, dude. There's a lot of drumming going
I
on
mean,
in there.
There's like 2 solid minutes of bongos, and then the
it's
drums slowly come in.
I mean, it's
And then
not.
it's a bongo drum and drum solo.
I mean,
Just let him keep saying bongo. Don't even bother trying.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've seen.
yeah.
I mean, you can watch him do it live. It's not like that, but it's whatever.
But look, like that is the outlier. Like Dave said, it has no purpose on this album
I disagree with that.
except for to show off how good you can play drums.
I almost
It's
want to
got
change
the-
my pick because your reasoning is so bad, but
Yeah.
Go
you know,
for it.
whatever. I'm just
So that bleeds
It's also
into
got the second best guitar riff on the record.
that also bleeds
no.
into the track listing for me. Like you could have cut the last 2 songs on here, and this album would be even better.
Oh,
God, you're dumb.
Anyway,
Bring it on home.
I
Jonah.
also have "Thank You" as the cut. For me, that is the odd one out personally, because every other song is bluesy and rocks, for lack of a better word. And that one, it's a slower jam. Again, not a bad song. Every song on this album is well above average for me. But that was my lowest scoring one, so I ended up cutting it.
All right. Well, hey, we're going to our score here for the album. And just to give you guys some context for how we score albums, for a lot of folks out there, an average score would be a 7. Well, for us, it's a 5. So anything we give beneath a 5, 4.9 and below is various levels of we would not recommend the album. Anything 5 and above is various levels of we would recommend it. Anything really 9 to 10 is like all-time great territory. Jason, I get the feeling you're going to be the lowest scorer because you're dumb. So how about you just go ahead and just put that out there, and then we can talk about the album like adults.
All right. Look, I do like this album. It's full of classic rock songs. My only critique of this album, honestly, besides the Moby Dick song that I don't like,
Cut the last
is
2 songs. What a dummy.
is just the experimental sections of every song. The parts that kind of go off into a jam session. Like it's just not my thing. And this is full of it. Like minutes long of just jams, or a solo that goes on for 2 minutes, or a jam that goes into silence and a fade back for 2 minutes, and it's just not my thing. Having said that, I still gave it a 7.8.
Wow. It's better than I thought, Fossil. All right, Jonah, go ahead.
So I struggled a bit with my score because I feel like on paper it did get a certain score, but in my heart it's higher. So I went back and forth between like 8.5, 8.6 in terms of numbers, but I settled on 8.9.
All right. What kept it from being a 9? What kept it out of the all-time category for you?
Just mostly my math.
Okay.
I didn't want to fudge my numbers too much. Even at an 8.9, I think that makes this the second highest album I've scored since I joined the show. So just because of how I do my math. So I mean, this is an absolute all-time great album. Yeah. Just shy of legendary for a few, we'll call them nitpicks. But I said it at the top, I don't want to undersell how impactful this album is and should be recognized for being. It's just for my personal taste, the way my mathed out, and plus a little bit of extra something thrown in there. That's how I ended up landing on an 8.9.
All right. Yeah. Like I said, living with this album for well over 20 years, as I was sitting here doing the arithmetic in my head, I'm like, if this was in 8th grade, then that means I was 13. I'm 40 now. So there's 27 years I've been listening to this record. Mm-hmm. And still listening to it many times a year. Not tired of it yet. I love this record. This is an all-time record for me. I came in with a big score. This is a 9.5 for me.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Josh?
You're a smart man.
We give each other crap a lot. It's mostly for the fun of this show. It's partially because we hate each other, but in truth, you are a smart guy. This is a legendary album, no doubt about it. I absolutely love this record. I've also been listening to it for my nearly entire life, and that's not going to change anytime soon. I also gave this a 9.5.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to the Beatles, and I can speak like Dave just spoke.
I think this record, as I said before, it truly feels like you're listening to something special. It's a tragedy that we only got 12 years of this band. But it's also just kind of insane that in that small time, they, like Jonah mentioned, they reshaped what hard rock and roll was for not just their generation, but like forever. Countless imitators.
There's still bands out there that are copying their sound. Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah.
Come at me, Greta Van Fleet, group.
Again,
you sound like a cut rate copy of Led Zeppelin, a tribute band.
Yeah, like the problem is that this band it wasn't just one person that made the sound. It wasn't, like, as we mentioned, it wasn't just Jimmy Page's riffs or anything like that. It was the foursome. And it's a little bit poetic, or whatever you want to call it, that they stopped after one of those four pillars was lost, right? They just you know what, we're done. And there's almost no band I can think of that either did that or would do that, right?
Yeah.
I guess Queen is an example of where they did also stop, but Freddie Mercury was their vocalist, so like I think it's a little bit different. But I mean, this band quit. They weren't even old. They just didn't want to continue. So 9.5. This gives it an 8.93, which is just shy of legendary status.
Change my score. Make it a 9.
Would that do it? Actually,
I doubt it.
It wouldn't.
No, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't.
What would I have to give it to get it to a 9?
Probably 8.2.
If you gave it an 8, Jason, and Jonah gave it a 9, it would be exactly a 9.
Yeah, see, because where my score was is I scored Moby Dick so bad.
He's like, yeah, that sucks because it's not a 9.
Yeah, so
I knew someone was gonna have a problem with that song. I even put it in my notes. Someone's gonna hate this song.
Did you think it was gonna be me?
I honestly, I did. I'm not gonna lie, I did. And then after today, I'm like, what's going on?
What is going on here?
But just for everyone's awareness, an 8.93.
That has to be one of the highest albums we've reviewed.
It is the fourth highest album we've reviewed. Basically, if you remove Metallica, it's the highest we've reviewed.
I was about to say.
There you go.
So
I think that's fitting.
Huh?
Wasn't it? What was it before that? Wasn't it Judas Priest?
Painkiller?
It was Operation Mindcrime.
Oh yeah. Operation Mindcrime. He's making a part 3 to that, by the way.
It's gonna be terrible.
In my own little scoring universe that I have going on, it's my second highest score, just behind Dream Theater, Train of Thought, and just above. I think it's either Boston or
Rush Moving Pictures.
Or Rush. Yeah.
Nice.
I think it's in good company up there. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, if you think this video is also in good company, then go ahead and hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're putting out weekly metal content right now. We got metal reactions, metal reviews, metal time machines, metal brackets, and all kinds of other cool shit because we cussed already on this video. Right. In the meantime, live long and prosper.
Take it easy, everybody.
Later.
Peace.